The spirit of racism has come to steal, kill, and destroy. This is one of my channels. It's meant to be totally atheistic. But if in speaking out against that spirit, I have to shake hands with Christians, so be it. I'll let the scripture lead me then. I'll be willing to put that pride down. This is Nuance with Nikki, the nitty gritty, even when it's shitty. This is an invitation to those who are sick and tired of this showing up in our algorithm online or every day. This video does not intend to be anti-Black American. I do not believe that this individual speaks for all Black Americans any more than I believe that Zionists speak for all Jews. The spirit of racism is the spirit of lies, so I will do my utmost best to speak the truth. The spirit of racism is the spirit of hatred, so I will choose love. Where I cannot have both, though, I will prioritize truth over love. Just to be clear. The spirit of racism wants to separate African child from African child. The spirit of racism wants to take souls who are traveling around in meat suitcases and have them play status dynamics with each other. The spirit of racism is like that guy when you're at the club or you're out in the park, you're on the bus, and you don't want to be hit on that day. And he just doesn't get the point. And he keeps showing up. You know who I'm talking about. Doesn't catch a hint. We don't want you, spirit of racism. So for those of you who are tired of the spirit of racism, or even the mention of that heavy word, I'm going to invite you to put up the fist of solidarity. This is from Mozambique. Many of you might think of it as the black fist of power. I'm going to ask you to be more specific when you mention it. Remember Mozambique. And what we say is a luta continua. Can you say that? A luta continua. Now, I am not Mozambican. They're my next door neighbors. So if you're from Mozambique, please teach us how to say it properly. A luta continua means the struggle continues. And the second part is, I think, Vitória é certa. Again, I don't speak Portuguese. So I invite those in Mozambique to teach us, please. Please teach us how to say it and teach us in a Mozambican indigenous language. We would really appreciate that. And the reason I invited you to do something which I kind of know as a passing reference is because I invite you in any topic around blackness. And yes, I'm a mixed race person. I'm not even half black. But I'm going to call out my mixed race brother over here. So just let me handle this because I'm trying to spread truth and love. I'm trying as an imperfect person to spread truth and love. If you stand for truth and love, just give me a chance. I encourage you that any conversation about blackness from now on, can we consider centralizing black African voices? What I mean is people whose mama is black, their father's black, every single great-grandparent was black, and they were born geographically on the continent of Africa. I didn't say include, I said centralize. Put the spotlight and shine it on them at the center when we speak about any topic related to race, racism, blackness, or anything to do with misogyny. And my invitation is on this basis. And I'm about to invite spiritual language, which is above my current knowledge and wisdom. I'm speaking from my heart. Okay? I believe at the root, at the crux of all racism to all people of all colors, at the crux is a hatred for our mother Africa. I believe at the crux of all misogyny and sexism is a subconscious hatred for our mother Africa. And by our, I mean human beings, because I'm sitting now in the cradle of humanity. Right here. I'm in Gauteng. Cradle of humanity is known as Magaliesburg. The first modern humans walked here. Something happened in ancient times, and we've got this spiritual thing going on where we started a war against our mother, and she has played herself out, and everything else we've gone through has been a shadow of that war. And I don't know exactly what I'm talking about there, but I can feel it. So maybe I'm crazy. But give me credit, please, for trying to speak truth and love. Spirit of racism, you will not have the last word. So I invite to speak through me anybody who's been in that chokehold. Spirits of Native Americans, Africans, the Irish, people from Cape to Cairo. Speak through me. Speak through me, please. And any spirits of malevolence, yes, I'm showing you my spiritual side now. I don't normally do it on this channel. Any spirit of malevolence, you're not welcome here. Any spirit of truth and hatred, you're not welcome here. Any spirit of deception and lies, you're not welcome here. Spirit of pride and ego, step aside. Because we want to connect with each other as human beings and as souls. We don't want labels anymore like American or African or black or this to separate us from just trying to go to a cookout. We're just trying to eat and pay our groceries. We don't need this. You will not have the last word. You've plagued us. You will not have the last word. So I invite truth to speak through me. I invite healing to speak through me. I invite love to speak through me. And I request of any audience, the 2.5 people who watch this, to give me grace where I fall short. You're claiming lives right now. You're claiming lives. Nothing's new there. But even for those of us who live, you claim the wealth of our everyday life. You pervade our every conversation. We don't want to be watching a video on racism right now. I don't want to be doing a video on racism right now, but we have this toxic bond to you. You're like a toxic husband. And I think you're getting so desperate because you know your time is over. You know. So you're like at the divorce, you're grabbing onto us and holding on to every last vestige, every last penny and cent. Your days are over. My audience, no matter what their race, one day their children are going to look more like me than like them because they are the ancestors of a long line of mixed race people. That's going to happen. Whether or not they do it in their lifetime, their grandchildren will. So that's going to happen. So they want to watch and be equipped for understanding you, not because they like you. Curtain call is almost due. Take a bow, racism. I've had enough of us wounding each other. That was the sound of a Hadida. You want to hear me get spiritual and weird? That was the sound of a Hadida, the messenger of the gods, the messenger of the god Ra. Okay, you know Thoth, the messenger god of communication. He just showed me that he agreed with me. I don't care if you guys think I'm weird. I don't care. I mean, racism already says I'm weird, right? It already calls me half a person. And so now we think we're going to heal that by pushing others down? No. I choose healing. I choose healing. And I am going to be angry here because I'm human. But the highest part of me wants you and me to get the fuck along. We've got more important things to argue about than this shit. I'm just invite you now as I'm inviting myself to just breathe in. Feel the anxiety in your tummy. I'm sorry for sharing that with you and bleeding it on you, and thank you for helping me carry it. Okay, this is too big to carry alone. But I'm inviting you to compassion because you're going to get triggered while watching this video. Particularly if you live between sea and shining sea, under the star-spangled banner, from Detroit to LA, Sulphur Springs in Florida, Arkansas. If you live in those United States, I want to invite you back to 2020. Do you remember that devastating video we watched? George Floyd. Changed my life seeing that video. And the Black Lives Matter movement rose across the world. People were devastated. No one more than Africa. We stood in firm solidarity. It was a painful moment. It was a painful moment. It was a tumultuous moment. All kinds of bullshit was happening. Everybody else wanted to come and tell us about which other lives mattered, as if that was ever being questioned. We stood firm. I mean, even the dust in Africa sent you guys a dust storm. You were coughing on the Atlantic coast. Because it's not like it's the first time that happened, but for many of us, it was the first time we saw a murder live on film. Black Americans were in deep pain. Can you imagine in that moment if anyone from the African diaspora had come up to Black Americans and said, and this is painful, because this is what this gentleman did. This is what this gentleman did. Can you imagine if he came up to any Black American and said, "We told you, why don't we leave America?" Can you imagine if anybody from Uganda, from the Caribbean, from Britain said that? Just take a moment to imagine the heaviness and pain. I'm not attacking Black Americans. I refuse to join the hatred anymore. At least this time I'm going to try. I do have anger, but I'm going to try not to take it out against you, the human being watching this and wanting to join and be together. It's against the spirit of racism. So, my non-Christian ass is going to stay, for my struggle is not against flesh and blood. My struggle is not against this meat package. My struggle is not against the blue passport or a green passport, whichever passport. My struggle is against the spirit of racism. And boy, is he struggling. I will not let him have the last word. Can you imagine if someone did that? Because later on you're going to see a black lady and she's going to respond in pain, a black lady from Britain, at this man scratching at the wounds of others. In South Africa we say, "Jy krap my daar waar ek jukkie." It's what we as colored people say. "Jy krap my daar waar ek jukkie." You're scratching me where I don't itch. And it's supposed to be where I don't itch. You know what I mean? You're scratching me where I don't itch. Just breathe in while I get some fresh air, please. What a time in history. What a time in history, boys and girls. So we're going to go to the channel of a woman of extreme integrity, one of the most beautiful women on the internet. I love this channel. I stumbled upon it a few times, and then I was just thinking about it. Funny, I was thinking about Mr. Know-It-All here. Okay, Nikki, try. Guys, my lower self and my higher self are wrestling. Give me some grace. Okay, my higher self wants us to get along. My lower self is going to come through. Give me some grace. I'm trying not to even edit, okay? I'm just trying to be real with you. So, sound crazy because I'm neurodivergent and ADD, and I have my Chiron and Gemini. I'm not good with words. And here I am trying to speak truth to the 2.5 people who follow my channel. And just I need the mouse to work. Okay, trying not to have a nervous breakdown. I'm breathe in. But look at that beautiful woman right there on my screen. Just look at her. Just isn't she gorgeous? She's gorgeous. Who is your baby? Her name is Ndagire. I believe she's from Uganda, if I remember correctly. I do believe so. Right? So I every now and then stumbled across her page, only very recently subscribed. But I was just thinking about her yesterday, and I was just thinking about this guy. I think it's him too. Yesterday, when lo and behold, this morning it comes up. This thing. Look at me with my undone nails. You don't want to know how messy my hair is. You're getting me real. So, my beautiful sister over here, Who? We're secretly twins. Okay, fine. I love her channel because I find her fair. I look up to her because I think she's the kind of woman I want to be on YouTube. I want to speak truth and nuance. That's why I called it Nuance with Nikki. But I get anxiety in my stomach because I'm trying to speak with nuance and speak the truth and be fair to everybody and sometimes even be the devil's advocate. I fear that people will see me as siding with one side or whatever. Right? In Trevor Noah's words, context and nuance have been lost upon us. Thank you. That was the heart he does. So we're going to watch this beautiful lady. I love her channel, and I suggest you go and watch it. I haven't watched everything, but I like her spirit. And yeah. So Black Americans, yes, you are going to be attacked again. I do not believe he speaks for you. I'd like to speak later about why I don't believe that he speaks for you. I don't believe he speaks for everybody from sea to shining sea. Okay? No, you're not all raised like that. No one's going to tell me that shit. But we can use this as a lesson and an invitation for us all to reflect. And we're going to reflect upon the myth of the civilizing effect of the West upon Africa. We're going to reflect upon myths of Western superiority. We're going to reflect upon insecurity. So I'm going to dive deep. I am not promising you a pain-free ride. I am going to say some things that hurt, but my intention is not malicious. I aim to use my spirit as a surgeon. Does that make sense? I am going to cut into you, but the aim is not malicious. It's to cut out this cancer for the 1 or 2 people who may watch this video and reconsider their relationship to the spirit of racism. And maybe we'll get to talk about what makes me think I have the right to do that. But for now, I was raised by Nelson Mandela. Not personally, my whole country was. So let's just go with that. Okay? That's the short version. There's more. But whatever, it's not about me. It's we're going to centralize the pain of the British people who are going through a lot of stress right now. I want to thank you, Mr. Blackanese man, for... I don't know if that's a racist term. I hope it's not. I heard that on the show with Chris. Was it Chris Tucker? Yeah, it was Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan, that movie. So I didn't mean any harm. I hope that's not an offensive term. If it is, please lovingly call me out. Okay? Ugh. Look, you're screwing up in the beginning of the video. It's okay. Okay, spirit of racism, you're not going to make me fear. The people understand my intention. I've made it clear. I want to thank you because I didn't even want to watch anything about Britain because I've had a negative taste in my mouth towards Britain since October when they were accusing us of being anti-white as South Africans at the same time as Americans were accusing us of being anti-black. And this whole week, I've had this bad relationship towards foreigners making South Africa the whipping boy and making Africa the whipping boy. I'm taking the whole thing about Iman Khalif very personally. Us being mischaracterized, and being whipped by Westerners with their myth of moral superiority. I've been taking it a little bit too personally, and my spirit said, don't make a video. And then this morning, I saw a video of people, actually in Dagire's channel, of people in Africa taking advantage of African Americans. And it helped. It felt like an invitation to remember your humanity and to remember that you're not just these spoiled Americans who are trying to beat us up. And just to remember that I know you, I've met you, I've walked with you. And just to just not just other you, because I fear having been othered by you. Maybe it affected me more than I know when I was on a video call with my husband and the guy mentions, hey, this is my girlfriend, she's from Africa, and the African American guy turns around and goes, just make sure she washes. That's all I'm saying. Just make sure she showers. That's all I'm saying. A man who would be characterized black in America, not here, he'd be colored here, but yeah, that's what he said. We were just shocked. We were both froze. We didn't know what to say. I think maybe that affected me more than I knew, and it served to create a little bit of a wall between me and you. And then, so please forgive me for creating that wall out of my pain. And then later on, 2021, you must remember this is right after we've marched for George Floyd and everything. Right after I'd been mocked for saying, not all Americans are like that, and actually had lost friends for trying to stand up for you guys because the world was really becoming disillusioned with the United States. And people were saying that by saying, hey, not all Americans are like this, that I was defending Americans somehow, And then South Africa's scientists and Botswana's scientists did this amazing job of finding 2 new variants in COVID and warning the world about them, finding them before any other scientists did. And the governments of the world labeled us and said it's the African variant. And they demonized us. And the variant had come from the Netherlands. And they didn't shut down the Netherlands. And they didn't shut down whatever Asian country it was. They shut down all South Africa and all Southern African countries. And I thought, nah, man, the African Americans are going to lose their minds. They're definitely going to speak up for us. And I looked for it on the internet. And all I found was African American voices acquiescing, not able to wrap their minds around the fact that African scientists could actually outperform theirs. Even those on my timeline. Not being able to wrap their heads around the fact that maybe an African can outperform someone if they're Western. And the message that sent to me was, oh, I get it now. Black lives matter as long as they're American. Right? And then also around that time, Namibia was busy negotiating with Germany for the first genocide to be acknowledged, the first genocide of the century, the forgotten genocide in Namibia with the Herero. It was the first one that Germany did. Germany's only acknowledging it now. And the guy was walking around with a Black Lives Matter mask. And I want to be clear, when we say Black Lives Matter, we meant to centralize African American people. We got into fights as protesters because people were saying, well, why don't you care about Black South African lives? Why don't you care about colored South African lives? Why don't you care about white lives? And we were like, stop it with your whataboutism. Right now we're centralizing Black Americans. We're putting them first because it's their moment in their struggle. Right? But I realized that the same wouldn't be returned. And it was because Whoopi Goldberg, the star of Sarafina, who I just saw as a South African. I saw her as one of our aunties. She did this. That country's health problems, she said. The star of our most important anti-apartheid movie. She said the part that dehumanizes Africans. That country's health problems. And left out the rest of that sentence, which is, because that country has had health problems, because South Africa, before COVID, had TB, which was caused by the AIDS crisis, they built the most sophisticated epidemiological infrastructure in the world, which is why they were the most trained, the most equipped, the most sexy, amazing, class A1 scientists to speak up when it comes to COVID. They definitely understand respiratory stuff. I mean, they're still alive, aren't they? Right out of apartheid, they went straight into the AIDS pandemic. Right out of AIDS, they went straight into TB. Right out of TB, they went straight into COVID. And they're still standing. How amazing, South Africa. How amazing, Botswana. And what you did was your scientists kicked ass, took names. But you see, framing an African as a hero then takes away from American glory and American supremacy. And so African Americans who battle with identity, which is completely understandable, cannot let go of that. That must be protected, right? The American savior complex must be protected at all costs. The American superiority must be protected at all costs, even if it means doing to Africa what was done to George Floyd, shutting him up, making sure he can't speak and breathe, even if it means punching down. We'll talk about it. I don't hate you for it. I know, or I choose to believe, that it comes from a place of not feeling rooted and of buying into narratives that were given to you by others, given to you by the spirit of racism. Narratives of you being sold by us. I'm going to question those later, okay? I'm going to question the validity of that later, because it sounds like you've only been told one side of the story. There's more. Hope I remember, because there's so much I want to talk about. How long am I? Are you still here 25 minutes later? Sure. Well done. Pause for a second and breathe or something, because nitty gritty shitty, man. Dagire, preach, girl.
Hi guys, welcome to another video. It's Ndagire here. Thanks for coming. As always, for the subscribers, thank you so much for your time. I always appreciate it. Today's video, guys, I've been seeing a lot of like what is happening in the UK. I've shared quite a few things that are happening in there. But when you see it, or when you see that attack come from your own, or people that you consider to be your own, it's crazy. Today's video, we have this Black American guy, or Black Chinese, Black Japanese, Black American, like he says he's Black American, but from the looks of it, not to judge, guys, he came out and was calling out South Africa for having, a white representative as a miss whatsoever, what was going on in there. And then he also came to call out or attack Black British people as well for what is going on in the UK. And I mean,
Can I just pause there? If you're watching this video, do you think that the opinion of Black South Africans matters? Do you think they have a right to make decisions about their own countries? Because if you do, why is it that you question them when they tell you what they want? They wrote their own constitution, not their forefathers. It was written in 1995 when Tutsi Roll was coming out. And the constitution says, go look up the South African constitution, don't take my word for it. We recognize the injustices of our past, but we're choosing to build a rainbow nation. Rainbow nation, that's what Desmond Tutu called us. It means the nation of all races. That is what Black South Africans wanted. They're perfect. They didn't need a savior or advice. I know it must be comforting when people picture South Africa to dream of being her savior. But we've been doing just fine on our own. Black countries in Africa who didn't want white people are perfectly capable of chasing them away. I believe Zimbabwe did something of the sort. There was another country in Africa, I don't recall, they didn't want Indians, chased them away. South Africa had the opportunity and the means, as it was then the wealthiest country in Africa. They were asked, and they chose to stand together. They chose their borders. You may call them colonial. I've said in another video, show me which borders in the world are not colonial. I have yet to upload that video. I just want to go and check it out first. But the point is, if you'd like to be a champion for Black South Africans, great. Listen to them. Listen to them when they were the loudest voices saying, we don't want colored people to call themselves black. They didn't want that. They don't invite us to call ourselves that. That's what they want. Listen to them when they say, we want to share our country with Indian people, with white people. They need to be at the center of their issues. Not just share their voice, the center. They deserve that. And you may have an opinion about that. You may. But how about you pay taxes first before you think that you actually come here? Because people do literally come here and ask Black South Africans, why don't you hate her? Why don't you hate that? Or they'll ignore Indian South Africans, whatever the case is, and demonize them. Right? South African citizens. Because their metric of what Africa should look like isn't what South Africans wanted. What Khoisan South Africans wanted, who were here before any other race, who aren't even by biologists considered black. And they're 100% African. They're the first people in the world. Look up Khoi and San. Okay? They chose to do a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. They're capable of making their own decisions. And I know you want to listen to Malema and EFF. He is funded by the same people as AfriForum. In other words, they are both funded by white billionaires. The people spreading the myth about the white genocide are funded by the same people who spread the song Kill the Boere. The whole thing is a scam to scam white people in Australia and America out of money. Okay? So the Africans in South Africa scamming people overseas are white. And the people they're scamming are white. White racists. I'm not even going to bother them. But that's what the whole thing is. Most of those supporters, the EFF is going to come for me. Most of those supporters are Southern Africans, not born as South African citizens, who go to these rent-a-crowd events and are bribed with a South African passport to support that. At least that's my perspective from what I can see. I mean, I just live here. But anyway. If you care so much about black South Africans, maybe don't speak over them. That's what I'm saying. You don't have to believe what I believe about the politicians. I'm just saying not everything, you don't, like, that's the information I have. But not everything is what you think it is on the surface. There's more.
Here's something else. That's what I can say. But yeah, guys, watch these clips and what other black people had to say about it. Come back. And let me say a few things as well about it.
It's very one-sided, and that's why
Companies of all sizes use BigQuery.
You know what? I don't mind there's an advert right now because I was about to lose it. Okay, let me breathe. Here we go.
it trickles down to jealousy. Because I tell every black American, you got to think about it like this. Why is it the first thing a black British person always wants to do is, oh, we know our roots, we speak about our roots, Yeah, y'all speak about y'all roots, but the funny thing is where y'all roots are.
Darling, what is it you believe we have to be jealous of? And I'm not British, but what is it you believe the African diaspora has to be jealous of you specifically for? Do you assume that we value the same things? We've been your biggest supporters as the African diaspora, especially Africa, the continent. You guys believe that the wealth you've made has not been made without Africa's support, without the African diaspora support. Think about billionaires. Think about black billionaire entertainers. If there's 1.4 billion people across Africa, north to south, if each of us only gave them $1, and I assure you we've given them more than $1, can you see how perhaps that has contributed to black American success? We've been your biggest supporters and biggest fans, and these days, a lot of you whip us for that. You beat us up. All this time, we've just been trying to do what you guys say out of support. Okay, but once again, you don't speak for all African Americans. I don't believe that, and I will show later why I don't believe that, if anyone's still here.
Or y'all never lived there. Because my thing is, maybe it's best I don't know my roots. Because it seems like the black British people who scream they know their roots, y'all don't ever live in the countries that y'all have all this pride in.
You know, there is a slur in South Africa. Well, it used to be a slur 100 years ago because it used to be for British soldiers, right? And it's called sout peel, salt penis. The idea was that the Brit had one foot in Africa and the other foot in Britain, and his penis was hanging in the sea, right? These days, we just say soti, and soti is not really a slur anymore. I mean, it's 100 years later, so it's just like a pet name that you give to any English speaker. So, for example, I'd be a soti, right? You're a soti because you don't speak Afrikaans or you don't speak another African language. Your first language is English. You'd be a soti, right? It just means English speaker today. But the history of people, you guys don't quite know the interrelationship between Europe and Africa, hey? The history of people, and yes, initially it was white people for decades, but now black people are wealthy enough to do that. There are people who have a house in Africa and a house in Europe, okay? And those that have enough money summer down in Southern Africa and then go summer in the UK. The UK loves traveling because, great as their country is, their weather is notoriously shit. So they don't spend their vacations there if they can help it. Don't believe me? Go and Google a plane ticket right now to South Africa, right? And then go and Google it. So what are we sitting in August, right? But it doesn't matter when you're sitting. Look at the different times of year. If it is closer to Christmas, like from about September, that is when, spring starts in South Africa. If it is closer to Christmas, the plane tickets will shoot up because bunches of Europeans of all colors are flocking to Africa. Please excuse me. Okay, so the point is, there's more of a relationship between Black Brits and Africa than you think. We're cool with each other. Brits of different races. We have a whole different relationship to Europe than what you imagine we do. There's a lot more inter-travel, a lot more relationship. We tease each other, we do whatever, we'll be rugby rivals. We have a whole different vibe, okay? Do you want me to be honest about it? There's a relationship that we all have, the rugby playing and the cricket playing and soccer playing nations, right? Especially the English-speaking nations, so the Southern African nations, as well as England, Ireland, Scotland, and then Australia, New Zealand. We're kind of one WhatsApp group and one clique. Now, America, you're totally invited to the party. You just don't want to come to the cookout, so nobody bothers with you, right? But we have a relationship as countries that you guys haven't been interested in until there's internet, right? And we're cool. We've worked out our shit for the most part. And then there's England, which is the uncle no one talks about, but he's there. He's still part of the family, right? And as a nation, not speaking about black people, whatever, I'm saying as a nation, you guys, as Americans, have acted like more of a friend, if anything, or a neighbor or something, right? But we're kind of like cousins. India's in there too, with the cricket vibes, okay? When it comes to rugby, the 3 Southern Hemisphere nations, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and places like Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England, we're constantly rivaling each other, whatever, and we have our little ego battles, but I don't know how to explain. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on that you don't know. Okay? We have some shit. And yes, you don't know how many people, white and black, actually have a home in Europe and in Africa. So, for example, my Greek family, they have a home in Africa, my auntie, that is Greek styled, and they're not unusual in this. This is very common. And then they have a home in Greece that is African styled, right? This is normal. This is normal. Those who can afford it. Right? So your idea that people haven't been coming to Africa is a totally colonial miseducation. They've been coming to Africa for centuries. Some took asylum here from religious torture like 400 years ago. Bunches of Brits came here. During the Napoleonic Wars, when there was an unemployment crisis, they were brought to the Cape. The Scottish intermarried a lot with the Xhosas. There's even a Scottish clan in the Xhosa clans. Xhosas also have a clan system. They have a similar culture. And the Eastern Cape looks a lot like the Highlands and stuff. So they have a similar culture. They have a clan system. And there is a clan called Iskoji. Look up Afro-Celts. And look at Xhosa people, and you can actually see. There's a whole history there. How do I know? I'm a descendant. So that's on a national level, but your notions of reality come more from... They're misplaced notions, bro. They're misplaced notions. There's more stuff going on.
Why are you getting your ass up in a plane?
What happened to the volume? Why? Why is this happening to me? Did I do anything to deserve this? Oh man, I'm not editing a thing because I can't handle this kind of anxiety. So if I made a mistake, I made a mistake.
Hi guys, welcome to another video. It's Ndagire here.
Okay, we'll just find her.
We speak about our roots. Yeah, y'all speak about y'all roots, but the funny thing is, where y'all roots are, y'all never lived there. Because my thing is, maybe it's best I don't know my roots, because it seems like the black British people who scream they know their roots, y'all don't ever live in the countries that y'all have all this pride in.
We're going to speak about him and roots later. Him and roots.
Why are you getting your ass up getting on a ship and a plane, literally paying people to ask them to marry you so you can get citizenship in another country to go live.
Paying people to marry them? You know, there's a wall in Britain, a very famous wall from like hundreds of years ago. It was built by a man named Sirius. The first man, by the way, ever to write anywhere in the world the words, "We believe that all men are created equal. We hold it self-evident," was a British man. Guess what race he was? Black. Queen Victoria, she kidnapped a princess, but she adopted her. Guess what race she was? Nigerian. The oldest skull found in Britain. Guess what race it is? You want to know who the first man in Britain was? You want to know what he was? You want to know what he was? Black. You'd know this if you could read, dear. Okay, I'm attacking him. I'm sorry, I have to. He does not speak for all African Americans. I refuse to believe that.
A better life. Because if there's all this pride, then you should not be leaving where y'all are from in droves. Like, y'all should not be leaving in droves if y'all love where you're from so much. And then once again, you look at everybody crazy when we say some of y'all sold your own people. It shows because in the country y'all are from, y'all get treated like shit by y'all own people. So,
hello? Hi. Where did you get the narrative of people selling you? Because I know you guys buy and hold on to that narrative a lot, and I'm not going to mock you for this. It must be a painful notion. And I'm not saying that it didn't happen at all, because it even happened in South Africa to South Africans in South Africa. Right? Show me your street and show me a whole street without shady people on it. Okay? But you don't have to know all of history. You don't even have to know about the history of the black people who did fight for you to stay, particularly women, and who gave their lives for your ancestors to stay. I don't think Billy Bob the racist is in a hurry to tell you that narrative. Look back at your textbooks. Go, if you're at home right now, go and show me how many of them were written by an African. Look back at the teachers that taught you throughout the years. Look at your country's track record. And question, please. Question. Let's not fight each other. Question its track record for having enough respect and love for black people to tell them anything that would be empowering about them. Then think to your street. If someone was coming now and capturing and stealing children, even if you didn't like that neighbor, do you genuinely believe about your street that everybody would just stand still and do nothing? And just sell? You really believe a whole neighborhood would sell people out? Just your block. Because if you genuinely believe that and have never questioned it, it's not just that you don't know about Africa, you don't know human nature. Watch Palestine being called terrorists right now, while you are seeing on video what's really happening. At least the smart people I invite you to watch. For the rest of you, I just invite you to question the validity of the source. Okay? Before you buy into narrative that separates me from you. When did I, and by I mean anybody born on the continent of Africa, oppress you? Compared to when did that person that told you that step on your neck? Question, please, sir. Madam. They, them. Question. Just question.
So y'all can miss me with the whole, we know our roots, we know where we come from, heritage. Once again, let me break it down to you. If you're Caribbean, you do not know your roots. Your roots was created once you got there.
No, you're projecting, dear. If there's one thing Britons are great at, they colonized everywhere. If there's one thing they're great at, it's knowing cultures and histories and roots. Even stuff that is not their own. They are very worldly people, well-traveled. So even if they weren't black and even if it was not about knowing your own roots, they're a very well-educated. Listen to how they speak. There's information in the libraries about every single place. You can often, when there's propaganda in your own nation, and I know their press is actually notorious for being assholes, but you can often, even the asshole British press, you can actually find out more no matter where you are in the world, you can often, when there's propaganda in your nation, find the truth out from the Brits. The Brits knew before we did when people were spreading propaganda about Winnie Mandela having killed a little boy called Stompie. The Brits were reporting on the fact that it was propaganda. They're an informed people. They're an articulate people. Reading and writing and literature, I mean, what else are you going to do in that reign? Right? So yes, they know their roots and they know other people's roots. You cannot question their literature. They gave us Shakespeare. Oh, by the way, talking about another black person that was in, since Shakespeare's day, you know Othello. Do you even know about the Prince of Morocco in The Merchant of Venice? Are you even aware about the Tempest? In the beginning, they speak about how the Prospero's niece or something was sent to go marry someone in Afrique. They've been interacting with black people for centuries, even before colonization. Othello is proof of it. Europe and Africa are closer to each other. We have a relationship you know nothing about. A lot of you will say things like I remember I was in America and I mentioned that I'm a Greek South African. She's like, Greek, you're South African. I'm like, Greeks have been coming to Africa since before there was a Bible. The Library of Alexandria. But you guys you need to stop buying into fantasies of Zamunde. It's a comedy, guys, not a documentary. Now, please don't go canceling Eddie Murphy because I said so. Zamunde is part of a comedy, not a Zamunde with Arabic style palaces and a Palace of Versailles style culture is not representative of Africa. It's a fantasy. It's Africa porn. When that woman came up from under the water, I know you've been dreaming about being an African king. I understand why you'd want to dream about that. I'm sorry to break your childhood dreams now, but we're dealing with the spirit of racism here. Maybe that's your maladaptive quality that you needed to survive the oppression of the red, white, and blue. The funny things you do. Okay? But I assure you that out of the 1.4 billion people in Africa, 700 million of whom are women, none of us here in Africa are waiting to come up out of the water where she says the royal penis is clean. There is no African woman waiting to perform fellatio to aid you in your personal hygiene, sir. Okay? All right? That is a fantasy. It's okay to have fantasies, but being an African king, first of all, being an African man, I can teach you the word indoda. It means the one who stands upright. So being a man in Africa is seen as a thing of integrity. Okay? Then being an African king. Do you know the words Setshwayo, King Setshwayo? Do you know about Sekukune? They spend time in prison. Did you know that Nelson Mandela was not just a president, he was also the son of a minor chief? Do you know that as part of his torture, a man used to urinate on his head? Do you know that after he became president and that man saw him and cowered, he invited that man to come and have a meal with him? Because creating peace and bridges in our nation was important for saving the lives of millions of people. His integrity, the depth of his spirit, was about keeping me alive to sit here and talk to you, try and talk some sense. Okay? That is the greatness of spirit of an African king. It is not just a pornographic fantasy. You're going to have to let go of that idea that you get to come here and tell people who they can and can't live and who they should and shouldn't marry and what they can and can't call themselves and be an expert on their identities. You're going to have to let go of the fallacy of Zamunde and let it be a funny Eddie Murphy comedy. Put it in that category in your brain. In the realm of fact, you are an American. There is a war for your mind because keeping you stupid, keeping you uninformed, keeping you busy and poor without medical treatment, and keeping you as dumb as possible, because you actually are very important, but keeping you as busy and as dumb and as uninformed as possible keeps a whole lot of powerful people in power. Because the easier you are to control, the less you can vote for intelligent things, the less you can protest for intelligent things. And they know you are a very strong, resilient, hardworking people of integrity, which is why they put millions into colonizing your mind. So you have grown up as an American, irrespective of color, with a distorted view of reality because there are billionaires who have degrees in communications, keeping you colonized here. George Carlin tried to tell you. Okay? Follow your intuition. But your ego, you are very intelligent people. Many times you actually surprise me how you don't allow your minds to be colonized, because I've seen the propaganda machine and it is amazing. The propaganda machine in America, I can't fault it. But your one Achilles heel is the need to be this American savior. Nobody is waiting for Captain America, guys. I'm sorry. In Africa, we don't have the same kind of hierarchies. In the African diaspora, we don't. We are not raised like that. Okay? What's tantamount here, and to European Africans, because they also are part of this family, actually interact with us. What's tantamount is respect, number one. Number two, seeing each and every individual. Understanding that equality is not uniformity. It's not this low vibrational energy of one on top of the other. A low vibrational energy of dominance. It's an energy of cooperation. It's a spirit we call Ubuntu. Which if, one of those colored girls last year said, Valumlomo vulamehlo. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Close your mouth and open your ears. You haven't been raised to do that yet. What do you want to say?
On a ship that a lot of British, Spaniards, Dutch, French people brought you to. Portuguese as well.
Imagine me waking up to being tagged in videos.
By the way, where did those ships stop? Where did those ships stop? Do you know? They stopped in South Africa. They brought people of all different races here, which is why the colored people are the most genetically diverse mixed race people in the world. And where had they come from? Asia. So the longest slave trade is actually the the Trans-Indian Ocean slave trade, not the transatlantic. It's 2,000 years long. The last 400 years it was in European hands. Those ships would drop East Africans and Asian people, Malaysian people, Indian people in South Africa before traveling up and getting the rest of people. There's a deeper story there. It was 2 women to 1 man on South Africa, 2 men to 1 woman on the American side, because the one side was labor-based, the other side servant-based, service-based. So we are your cousins here, and you have cousins or third cousins or whatever that are Asian. But you'd have to be interested to know shit all from shit about that. Before you play stupid hierarchical stuff, you're fighting your cousin. Okay, this woman is about to respond in pain. Remember what I said earlier. Imagine if during Black Lives Matter, we had turned to African Americans and said, we told you, leave that country. That would be an evil, cruel thing for us to say. While Britain is going through this, and it's a complex situation already, and it's a tense situation, the American decided to punch down. Sir, I do not believe that you speak for all Americans or all African Americans. I cannot believe that all of you are raised that badly, and I refuse to. I've met too many of you. But understand that she's speaking from pain and give her grace from that pain, please. Don't take it personally. Let us listen.
By Black Americans saying, oh, we told you so. You talk so much shit about us. This, that. And now look at what white people are doing to you in the UK. You thought that you were better than us. You thought that you were this. Why didn't you listen to us? Why didn't you this? Why didn't you that? We told you. How self-obsessed and narcissistic as a people that you have to be to claim that we should have listened to you or whatever it is.
She's speaking from pain. Now, some of you do, unfortunately, appear quite narcissistic, but as I said before, I don't believe that's all of you. I believe the loudest vessels make the most noise. I believe Americans are very difficult to stereotype because you're such a massive nation, right? You're massive, and so even a small percentage of Americans can be bigger than a small country, and I take all that into account. But I will show, if I still have patience later on, some of his narcissism in a previous video.
This was my exact point. You know nothing of other black people around the world.
You have been taught nothing about other black people around the world, or other people of other colors around the world whom you choose to demonize, guys. And if you enter these spaces realizing you know nothing, I invite you to do so because that opens up an opportunity for you to learn. It opens up an opportunity to undermine the spirit of racism, a spirit of deception, a spirit of lies, a spirit of misinformation, a spirit of lack of kindness, a spirit of lack of grace, which is what you embody when you pull the American rank. You can't have both. You can't have freedom from racism and still go, it can't be Black Lives Matter except non-American Black lives. Because that's what the world seems to be telling me right now. Black Lives Matter, as long as they're American, right? They matter less than what all lives or white lives or whatever, but they matter more than Palestinian lives, right? Which matter less than Ukrainian lives, all of which matter more than Congolese lives. That's the spirit of racism speaking. That's the spirit of racism speaking. You cannot be free from the chains of it if you're still enjoying the ride, the myth of the superiority of Americans. You can't have both. You cannot say with your left hand, we believe all men to be created equal, and then with your right hand, but Americans are more equal than others. You've got to create space. If you are holding up the pillars of racism and myth of Western superiority, why are you surprised if they come crashing down on you? Do you hear what I'm saying? I'm not hating, I'm educating. Let us speak truth. She's speaking in pain. If you're triggered, take a breath. Let us focus on our prefrontal cortex. Just try and come from the most gracious part of you. Okay?
This ain't the first time that this has happened in the UK. And if you knew anything else about other black people and what they went through in other countries, you would know this. Instead of doing videos of support because somebody that looks like you is getting attacked, you sit there and you talk about we told you so. If you picked up a book about Black British history, you would...
I send you my solidarity and support. And I'm sorry I bought into the myths of Britain versus South African. I fed into the same, with that whole Witkant thing, when your language, the English language, was being used to once again try and wipe out the youngest language in the world, Afrikaans, when it was being used by a white man against a black man, and when a black Briton was standing in solidarity with that white man, acting like the white man was the victim for demonizing the black man who'd grown up doing nothing but using orange bags to learn how to play rugby so that he could undermine the match of a man from a Dutch colony part of our country who would never use a word like cunt because he knows words like mahunyo, he knows words like mundu, he knows words like poes, he knows words like soutpeel, So it's not in his frame of reference. And it's not for a non-South African to tell me, there's the spirit of anger coming up again. It's not for a non-South African to tell me what is likely for South African to do unless you know. So I built a wall between me and you because of this flag, the Union Jack. And neither you or I created that. So I'm going to ask for your forgiveness if you will accept my solidarity, because I'm sick of this pain. I'm sick of us demonizing each other. Africa never created that. Our mama never created that. She never created that, guys. She never did. We didn't start this. We were arguing last year about colored being a colonial term. You know what else is a colonial term? Black. No one here ever called themselves that. They called themselves things like the isiZulu, the people of the sky. Bakubang, Bapokeng. People of the hippo. Do you know what I'm saying? They named themselves after beautiful things.
Would know that this happened in the 1950s, in the 1960s, when the Windrush, which was when my grandparents came to this country, it happened then. It also happened in Brixton, okay? It also happened when Mark Duggan died in 2011. There have been race riots against police, but also against people. And I know it's not all you Black Americans. It's so jarring that we have to hear your woes. We have to hear your history.
Yes. Thank you for acknowledging that it's not all Black Americans. I acknowledge you for that, Grace. And nobody has the right to tone police here. They can't with their left hand say, stand up for what's right, hashtag Black Lives Matter, but only Black American lives. That's not okay. So you're right. And thank you for having the grace in the midst of your pain and anger. You have a right to that anger. Yeah, what you were saying sounded very important now.
Black Americans, it's so jarring that we have to hear your woes. We have to hear your history. Oh, they did this and they did that. And Martin Luther King. We are taught all about your history. Everyone knows about your history. You bang on about it. We know. But do you know of anyone else's history?
That's true. We do know. Do you know how much we know? Do you know how much we know? We know. Oh my gosh. Like, they came for the education department in our country too, and you wouldn't believe how detailed the exams are actually on Black American history, besides all the pop culture and besides everything. And we support you and support you and support you. But it didn't happen in a vacuum. And to pretend otherwise, guys, is masturbatory. It's masturbatory. It didn't happen in a vacuum. Sorry, if my eyes are all over the place, I'm looking for an article. But it wasn't in isolation. And there are places far more remote in which even more egregious things, if you can even imagine that, and don't accuse me of oppression Olympics, please. It's just that you would be surprised at the level of horror that happens in the places that were much further from recorded history. Much geographically more isolated. You'd be surprised to find out what still happens today in places where there isn't a spotlight. You have at least that. You have at least the beautiful machinery of the American information mill. You still stand on that privilege. Can't be speaking out against white privilege if you don't recognize American privilege. Okay? So, I'm sorry, it just is what it is.
Do you know about any other Black people in the world? Do you know what we've been through? Do you know what South Africa has been through? Do you know what Black Brits have been through? Do you know what the Black French people have been through? What the Black Germans have been through? Can you tell us anything? Anything at all? You're talking about, you should have taken a page in our book and we don't stand for it and this, that and the third. You still have race riots every other day. You're still unalived by police every other day.
And she's not mocking your pain. All she's trying to say is sweep around your own front door before you sweep around mine. You're not going to heal the problems in those United States by stepping on the faces of other hurting people. They're not your enemy. You're not solving anything, my guys. Not solving anything. Not solving a damn thing. It is not fair to make us collateral damage in your war with the KKK and its lackeys. We've done nothing but support, and we don't deserve this in the African diaspora. Please resist the impulse to buy into notions of Western saviorism, Western moral superiority, American supremacy. Resist that impulse. Those are the same things. If you hold up those notions, you're holding up the racism which is crushing you guys down. And many of you live in far more difficult circumstances than we do across the diaspora. Many of you. You just don't know that. You do realize that when you do this, that it's a very ironic Uncle Tom thing in and of itself. Whether you're positioning yourself, you see an African, they don't look like what you think an African is. Let's say they're a white African. And you're like, I'm going to speak up for the black people of Africa. But the black people of Africa are cool with John over there. John was an anti-apartheid activist. They know who he is. Right? Guys, moral superiority, it's the same spirit. If you saw Iman Khalif and J.K. Rowling, and you can keep him, I know he was born here, but you can keep Elon Musk, billionaires talking about she's a man. When she's a girl who was beaten up in Algeria for being a girl who likes soccer. And that's how she learned she could box, because she learned she could dodge. She learned she could dodge by being beaten up by boys. She was poor. She had to sell shit to make the money for going to soccer practice for the bus fare, because her sexist dad wouldn't allow her to, because that's not how Algeria rolls. So not only are they projecting a Western issue onto something that doesn't apply, they beat her up for their projection. It's a strawman argument. It's a strawman argument. It is Western superiority. You're no different when you do that. It is still Uncle Tomming, my guy. It's not working. It's not classy. It's not pretty girl energy. Speak, girl. Speak.
In your own homes, in fact. You're still treated like third-class citizens in your country, and it breaks my heart. I would never, in your pain and suffering, do a video talking about, why did you get up and fight? Why don't you this? Why don't you that? I will always offer my support, no matter what.
She's right. In your pain and suffering. It's kind of like when my pastor was all like, what did you do, Nikki, to make him hit you? He was actually an American pastor with my first husband there. Huh. It's victim blaming. It's what was she wearing? Guys, I know that American ego has been the only thing that's protected you from that crushing weight. But it's costing you now. It's costing you. I invite you just to consider it. You don't even have to accept everything I'm saying. Just let's try and diffuse. It's hard. This is hard.
I think about you guys. It's disappointing that you haven't done the same.
As we've seen the video, that is what happened. And I must
Sure. She is so classy in the midst of her pain. I am so proud of her for speaking the truth, for speaking so beautifully, so eloquently, with so much pathos. Yes, girl. Yes, thank you. I need a break. I suggest if anybody's still watching, take a break. Let's take a break. Okay? Yeah, let's break. Guys, my ADD ass just saw the time. If anybody's still watching at this late stage, I'm going to go ahead and log off. I feel like I'm getting all the signs. So I'll stop the video here. I do hope and plan and intend if I watch this video and I see that I don't sound as crazy as I think I did, to make a follow-up for the 2.5 people who are going to watch it. But yeah, what Ndagira has to say is really what I wanted to get to, because she's so classy. She's so classy, and I'm so proud of her. I'm proud of that lady for speaking out so beautifully. Thank you. Thank you for speaking truth. Thank you for having compassion. Thank you for speaking with courage. It was hard. It must be hard to be on the receiving end, so thank you to anybody who's listening, especially if you're listening from the States. The people of Britain, sending you love and strength and solidarity. The spirit of racism will not have the last word. A luta continua, victory is certain. I thank you.